So I'd like to call this meeting to order. I have that it is the exact time is 7:06. As an announcement to the public in general, the meeting is being recorded live on YouTube, and I'm pleased to announce that we now have a YouTube channel. It is LA County Redistricting. The website is under development, and for now, please obtain information through the publication site of lacounty.gov/compub, COMPUB /. During the meeting, if anyone has any technical questions, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom webinar screen, and Ty Lee of KH is there to assist you. Any other public comment submissions can continue to be submitted through COMMSERV@bos.lacounty.gov. And with that, Ty, would you take roll call?
Thank you, Gayla. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Third County of Los Angeles Citizen Redistricting Commission regular public meeting for 2021. So today is January 27, 2021, and I will now take the roll. Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Here.
Commissioner David Holtzman.
Here.
Commissioner Daniel Maeda.
Here.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Present.
Commissioner Apolonio Morales.
Here.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon. Commissioner Priscilla Orpanella Segura.
Here.
Commissioner Hyla Soto.
Present.
Commissioner Saida Soto.
Present.
Commissioner Priya Sridharan. Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
Here.
Commissioner John Vento.
Here.
Commissioner Carolyn Williams.
Here.
And Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Here.
Thank you. And I will now turn it over to Gayla.
Okay, and I am asking for approval of the agenda. And I'll stop sharing so I can see everyone.
I motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Shall we do a recall? I don't think we need to do a roll call on this, Holly.
That's all right.
Just to approve the agenda. Okay, so we'll proceed. So actually, the next item is public comment, general matters not on the agenda. And again, this is for the general public. If you wish to speak on matters not on the agenda, please fill out the Q&A as though you were in an in-person meeting and you were filling out a public comment card. Put down that you would like to make a comment as a speaker, give your name and your affiliation. If you're on the phone line, we can access your information if you press *9 to raise your hand. And once you're called upon, you'll press *6 to unmute and speak. Each person will get 2 minutes. And when you speak, share your full name and affiliation at the beginning. That way people on the phone will know. And if you feel comfortable, please turn on your video while speaking. If you do not wish to speak, but you'd like to send in a public comment, you can type it into the Q&A button, again, by providing your name, your affiliation, and write your comment, and Ty Lee of KH will read it aloud. And so with that, do we have any public comments, Ty?
Currently, there's no members of the public who would like to make a public comment for the general section.
Okay, I see we have one on the action items. I will share that we did receive one written letter. And it was a letter that was in combination from the ACLU of Southern California, League of Women Voters of Los Angeles County, Asian Americans Advancing Justice Los Angeles, the Advancement Project, I'm sorry, I should have written out Advancement Project, California Common Cause, California League of United Latin American Citizens, and that should be SHRLA. And then finally, the Community Coalition. And that letter has been provided to all of the commissioners and posted on for the public to read. And it pertains to the bylaws. With that, we have 2 sets of minutes to present to you for your approval. One is for January 13th, and the second one is for January 20th. Let's begin with the minutes for January 13th. Are there any questions on the minutes? Is there a motion to approve them?
I'd like to make just one item here is usually on consent items. You do approve all of the items on consent unless somebody pulls an item. So you can do one motion to approve both sets of
Okay.
minutes.
Okay, so let's try that. Can we approve the minutes for both January 13th and January 20th, 2021? Is there a motion to approve both of them?
I'll make that motion.
So we have, I see Commissioner Maeda made a motion. Commissioner Soto, Hylas Soto?
Yes, I have a question. Since I wasn't present for last week's meeting, I guess just for the record, maybe I should abstain on the second item. So I don't know if that's gonna, if that will require separate votes then.
Holly?
We can split it out so you can abstain.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there
Back
a
to
second
first.
motion? Is there a second to the motion?
Yes, I second.
Okay, I saw also Commissioner Wong, but I'll put down Commissioner Franklin for the second. Okay, so let's do the roll call first for January 13th. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Stetcher.
Do we not discuss, or when is the opportunity for me to suggest 2 minor changes?
Oh,
Oh,
let's do them now. You are mute.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
For the first set of notes, on item 7D, overview of the Brown Act, conflict of interest, PRA, could someone write out what PRA stands for the first time it's used?
Okay, Public Records Act, happy to do that. And that would be on the January 13th. Okay, so that's a very simple modification. Anything on the, any others, little modifications discussion on January 13th? January 20th. Yes, Commissioner Holtzman.
I mean, if you, as long as you're making small changes on page 9 of the minutes, there was something about there's a paragraph that starts with Lorraine Lingate, et cetera, provided an overview of their role with the commission. And that probably should be plural roles.
Commissioner Holtzman, that correction has already been made because you sent that into me.
Oh, of course I
last-
sent that in. Okay. And
Yeah,
okay,
that was
sorry.
on the 13th.
Thank you. And then reasonable accommodations. Okay, I'll just leave that alone. I mean, that everybody knows what reasonable accommodations mean. So,
Okay.
okay, thank you.
Are there any other requests to the minutes? Yes, Commissioner Stetcher.
On, let's see, it's page 5 of the 20th.
Okay,
A motion was made to fill a commissioner vacancy at the time it occurs, and I would like to insert the following there. Drawing initially from the pool of 46 qualified applicants. And then continue with the rest of the sentence. But I think part of that, what we agreed upon is we first look to the existing pool, and that wasn't reflected.
okay. Any objections to making that modification?
Not by me, not on my motion.
Okay,
It's fine.
so we do have a motion to accept both the January 13th and the January 20th. I will spell out the Public Records Act abbreviation for the January 13th. And we'll make the other requested change that Commissioner Stetcher put forth regarding clarification that they would be selected first from the pool of the qualified applicants. Are we in good shape then? Well, with that.
I think you could take a roll call, and when it gets to Commissioner Haile Soto,
Yeah.
he can state he's abstaining on the one regarding last week, but can go ahead and state his vote as to the other.
Okay,
And
so
that way it'll kind of speed the process.
sure, that's great. So everybody is saying yes for both. When we get to Commissioner Haile Soto, he'll say his position and we'll separate it out. So with that, Ty, let's do roll call.
So I will now take roll call. Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Jean Franklin,
Yes.
Commissioner David Holtzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Daniel Maeda,
Yes.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza,
Yes.
Commissioner Apolonio Morales,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon, not present, Commissioner Priscilla Orpanella Segura,
Yes.
Commissioner Haile Soto,
Yes for January 13th, and I will abstain for January 20th minutes. Thank you.
Commissioner Saira Soto,
Yes.
Commissioner Priya Sridharan,
You need to unmute.
Apologies, yes.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher,
Yes.
Commissioner John Vento,
Yes.
Commissioner Carolyn Williams,
Yes.
and Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. So moving on through our agenda. And again, this is for the public. What we will be doing is we'll be introducing each of the agenda items. And what we would like to do is introduce the item. The staff will present a staff report or a PowerPoint if used. Commissioners can ask clarifying questions of staff during or after the presentation, but then we will open it up to public comment on the specific item that's being held. Once the public comment is then closed, the commissioners can then discuss, debate, and vote on the items. Again, if you are interested in submitting a public comment, we would like you to indicate which item on the agenda you are most interested in talking about, whether or not it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. I'm sorry, whether in terms of the agenda items here, 6A, 6B, 6C, and 6D. And for the public, I've already covered this in the earlier part in terms of agenda items that were not in the item. So I'm not going to go through this again. If there are any questions as we proceed, I can go back and update everyone. We will be allowing 2 minutes. And if you are on the phone, if you are here, use the Q&A button. If you're on the phone, press 9 to raise your hand. And with that, we're going to start with 6A. And our independent legal counsel, Holly Watley, will be covering this. And this has to do with the possible election of a chair and vice chair. Just so that folks on the phone can hear the other items, 6B will be the continued discussion of the bylaws. 6C will be looking at the potential formation of ad hoc working groups. And 6D will be consideration of a draft commissioner selection report. And with that, I am going to turn it over to our Holly Watley. Holly, you have to unmute.
Thank you. There's not really a staff report on this. This is a continuation of our discussion last week for the commission to consider nominations for chair and vice chair and potentially electing those officers. So I think really we should jump right in after we check and see if there's any public comment before you begin any deliberations. But unless someone has just a clarifying or procedural question at this stage before we take public comment.
Commissioner Holtzman has his hand up.
Yeah, that's for when after public comment.
Okay. Ty, do we have any folks ready to make public comment on this item?
No current comment on 6A.
Okay. With that, I think, and again, I think I personally do better with Gayla and or Ty call the hands, so I will stay out of calling. But I think now's the time for discussion and or making or entertaining any motions.
So Commissioner Holtzman has his hand up, and then Commissioner Wong.
Okay, thank you, Ty. So folks, fellow commissioners, I would prefer not to do this until after we adopt the bylaws. But if we're going to do this, before we adopt bylaws, can we just make it so we're electing an interim chairperson, an interim vice chairperson until such time as we adopt bylaws? That's what I would like. Those are my preferences in order.
Commissioner Wong.
Yes, I don't know if this is the appropriate time to raise this issue as it relates to the bylaws, but upon thinking on this issue, I think I would like to propose, or if I have us think about having co-chairs rather than a chair and a vice chair, so that it could be more of a team or a partnership effort, because there's going to be a lot of work, and I would like to see kind of a partnership as well as kind of an equal kind of representation, like gender-wise. So, for various reasons, I think I would like to get reactions from other commissioners about that proposal.
Commissioner Maeda.
So that's a very interesting suggestion from Commissioner Wong. I think it's definitely worth considering. I have a question for Commissioner Holtzman. What
Commissioner Maeda, your screen
Good
is
from the internet. Dan, where are you?
Commissioner Maeda, your screen is frozen, so you'll need to start at the beginning. You're now on mute, Commissioner Maeda.
was I not muted? Was I not heard?
Your
Okay.
screen was frozen, so start from the beginning. You said it with an interesting idea.
I'm sorry. I was saying that I thought Commissioner Wong's suggestion was an interesting idea. And I hope we will give that some consideration. And then I turned to Commissioner Holtzman and asked if there is something else in the bylaws later on that he thinks we should know about or be informed about that would in some way affect our decision as to the vote for chair, co-chair, vice chair, or whatever we're going to do.
Okay, Commissioner Maeda, I'll take that question. At least in the version of the bylaws that I'm suggesting, there's a method for doing the election, and there's a term for each office. There's a provision about replacing officers when if they resign from that position or what have you. There's various rules that we might want to follow starting when we adopt the bylaws that we might not be considering right now. So that's why I think if we do adopt the chair, if we do elect a chair now or vice chair now, vice chairperson now, we should only do it until such time as we adopt the bylaws, because the bylaws will actually have written things governing the election of such officers.
Commissioner Orpanella-Segura, you have your hand up.
Could we consider perhaps if the rest of the commission feels like we need to first address the bylaws, to move the bylaws discussion up and then subsequently discuss the chair and vice chair?
I believe that's a question to Holly.
Yes, you can. Somebody could make a motion to temporarily table this until we get through the bylaws and then pick it back up at that point.
Commissioner Stetcher, you have your hand up.
Thank you. I fear that the bylaw discussion will be lengthy and intricate, and I worry we won't have time to give adequate consideration to the chair. Perhaps we could focus strictly on those elements of the bylaws that relate to this election. I think there are three things that Commissioner Holtzman mentioned: a secret ballot, a term for the chair, and no, he's saying, well,
Not secret
what are the
ballot.
things that relate? Secret ballot was in your original
Yeah.
proposal.
I took it out last meeting.
Oh, okay. Well, could you just delineate what the 3 points are, and then maybe we could resolve those?
Oh, I was just off the top of my head remembering that there's election method and a term and things like that in there. I could call my current draft up on the screen now, but it seems a little premature to do that. Because we're not discussing the bylaw, right?
Correct.
Is there a motion
So-
to this item or not? I hear that Commissioner Orpanelli Segura had begun to suggest that. And it seems like a lot of people have questions about this selection process. I don't hear a motion, Holly.
I don't hear a motion. So do we have a motion for a chair and or vice chair?
I see Commissioner Holtzman has his physical hand
The
up.
physical hand. I would like to make a motion to continue this discussion until after we've adopted that.
Do we have a second? Hearing
I'll
no
second
second. Okay, we do have a second
Yes.
from Commissioner Hyla Soto. Discussion of that motion. And the motion is that we continue this item, electing a chair and vice chair until after the bylaws are considered. Okay, no discussion. Ty, I think you can take a roll call vote.
Okay, great. So I will now take the roll call. Commissioners, again, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Jean Franklin,
No.
Commissioner David Holtzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Daniel Maeda,
No?
Commissioner Mark Mendoza,
No.
Commissioner Apollonio Morales,
No.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon, not present, Commissioner Priscilla Orpanelli Segura,
No.
Commissioner Hyla Soto,
Yes.
Commissioner Saida Soto,
Yes.
Commissioner Priya Sridharan,
No.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher,
No.
Commissioner John Vento,
No.
Commissioner Carolyn Williams,
No.
and Commissioner Dorina Wong.
No.
Okay, motion fails.
All right, do we then have a motion or to nominate anybody for chair?
Commissioner Mendoza, you have your hand up?
I do. I would like to nominate two candidates, Daniel Maeda and Priya Sridharan for chairman and vice chair respectively.
Commissioner Orpanelli Segura, you have your hand up, and then Commissioner Franklin. Commissioner Orpanelli Segura, you are muted.
Thank you. My apologies. I would like to nominate Commissioner Maeda for chair.
Okay, then we have Commissioner Franklin, then Commissioner Stetcher, and Commissioner Saida Soto.
I would like to nominate Commissioner Maeda for chair. Are we also making nominations for vice chair now or later?
You can do it now.
Okay. And Commissioner Holtzman for vice chair.
Thank you.
So Commissioner Stetcher, then Commissioner Saida Soto.
I'd like to amend the nomination to say that their term of office should be a year.
Commissioner Saida Soto.
I have a question which ties back to Commissioner Wong's idea about the sort of balance of role in having co-chairs, and wondered if it makes sense to have that discussion before, not to say that we would, backtrack on the nominations on the table, but simply, does one come before the other so that once we take a vote, the titles are sort of discussed and agreed upon?
Any discussion on that?
Commissioner Vento.
I do like that, entertaining that idea of co-chairs. I do. There's something just appealing about that. I don't know why I didn't even think about that last week. Maybe I'm not as tired, but I do like the idea of actually having two co-chairs, so we have a sharing, and I like the way that sounds.
Commissioner Wong, then Commissioner Morales.
Well, I don't know if this is premature or we need more discussion, but I like, and I don't know if it's appropriate, I'd like to make a motion to change the chair and the vice chair position to co-chairs.
Commissioner Morales, then Commissioner Maeda.
Just that there's a motion on the floor, but just expressing my just interest in exploring that idea a little bit further. Because I think we do need to figure out how we're going to be working as a team. And I think that would be in the spirit of that.
So Commissioner Morales, are you proposing to second that, then open it up for discussion?
Yes, I will second the motion.
All right. Right now, as I understand it, we have 3 motions on the floor. The most recent is the motion that the chair and vice chair actually be co-chairs. The one that preceded that was Commissioner Stetcher's motion to amend a different motion to add that the term would be for 1 year. And before that, we actually had kind of a cluster of nominations, but the initial motion came from Commissioner Mendoza, where he moved to nominate Daniel Maeda as chair and Commissioner Sridharan as vice chair. So sort of in the order of parliamentary procedure, we start with the most recent motion first. And we can only have 3 motions on the floor at one time. So I'm going to start with this most recent motion that it actually be co-chairs as opposed to a chair and a vice chair. And so open that up for discussion, and then ultimately we'll take a vote on that.
So Commissioner Maeda, then Commissioner Franklin, and Commissioner Holtzman.
Thank you. I believe that's the only motion that has been seconded of the 3, if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct. You're correct.
And I'll speak in support of that motion. I do think that's a good idea, having thought about it a little bit. I favor it.
Commissioner Franklin.
I don't favor that idea. As co-chairs, it's difficult enough, cheering, but to have a co-chair at the same time, it can be a bit confusing. Right now, in the very beginning, it seems okay, but when you're in the thick of things and really having to move and complete the process that we need to deal with, it's difficult at best. Not difficult in the sense, but it's challenging. So to make it cumbersome with the co-chair, I think would not be smooth sailing in the middle. So I prefer having just a chair and a coach and a vice chair, and not co-chairing.
Commissioner Holtzman.
I agree with Commissioner Franklin on this because we'd have to really rewrite the bylaws for one thing to accommodate co-chairs, because right now both draft bylaws, the set I've suggested and the set that's coming from our consultants, only provide for 1 chair. And as part of that, there's powers and duties of the chair. And if you have 2 people, what do you do if they disagree on what should be done? On well, like in the somebody's got their speaker on and it's feeding back. I don't know if you people hear that. Anyway, oh, thank you. It's gone. So for instance, the chair can put something on the agenda. What if one of the co-chairs wants to put something on the agenda and the other one doesn't? We'd have to write a decision rule to break that tie. We'd have to figure out what it means for the co-chairs to be presiding together over a meeting, because the main duty, I guess, of the chair is to preside over the meetings. So I think co-chairs would be a little too complex, more than we really need. I mean, so we've been doing pretty well without a chair right now. But as far as having two chairs at the same time, what does that mean? I don't know. It's just, I can't support just making it co-chair at this point, unless you've got a whole set of bylaws ready to go to back that up, how you would change the proposed bylaws. Thank you.
Commissioner Wong and then Commissioner Williams.
Yes, thank you. Well, number one, the bylaws are fairly straightforward and simple. I think it's pretty easy. If you had co-chairs, they would share those responsibilities. As far as trying to work together, I have been in many organizations where you have co-chairs, and part of the point is to have a smooth running commission. You have to kind of work together. We all will have to learn to work together. And, I am sure that the two people will be able to resolve the issue of what should be on the agenda. And I see an advantage to having people take turns, say, facilitating or chairing a meeting. And also, I think another issue that's important, I think it was mentioned before, is for the gender balance and the representation in terms of a spokesperson for the commission, so that it looks, like, either can speak on behalf of the commission. So I just see a lot more advantages than disadvantages to having co-chairs.
Commissioner Williams.
Yeah, I was trying to understand, I guess the same as Commissioner Holtzman, how does that work when you have two co-chairs? And I know in the bylaws, we now have the responsibilities defined for the chair and the co-chair, but it's also my understanding in the bylaws that they do work together. It's not like there's the chair and then there's, somewhere there's just the co-chair. I mean, the vice chair, that they do work sort of as partners in moving the commission along. And while the chair speaks for the commission, it doesn't mean that the co-chair would not have a role as well. So I guess for me, trying to understand what the differences is where I'm struggling. And I guess it's just more of a discussion of the advantages and some of the disadvantages. And I appreciate Commissioner Wong explaining some of that, but I like the ideas, just trying to get my arms around it and really get it is where I'm at.
Commissioner Franklin, then Commissioner Hylas Soto.
So do we disregard a vice chair? So if we have two co-chairs, then what about the vice chair? What role would the vice chair play? So that's my concern, and having a gender balance. The vice chair, we can put in the bylaws that the vice chair would be a spokesman, as a spokesperson as well for the commission, and have a valued, equitable role to play. So my concern is, what role would the vice chair play? Or would we omit the vice chair and just have two co-chairs, and in the absence of one chair, the other co-chair would step in? To me, it becomes cumbersome. It's not smooth to me.
Commissioner Hylas Soto.
Yes, I like the idea of the co-chair, what was presented by Commissioner Wong. Maybe typically in a lot of commission meetings, there's a script that's prepared for the chair, vice chair during meetings just to facilitate the process. And during the bylaws, maybe we could just put instructions, either they'll co-chair each individual meeting, each public meeting, or they could alternate between meetings. Every other meeting. And I like the gender balance proposal. And also, I think since there's been a lot of discussion with the bylaws, I think with the bylaws, we spent a lot of time discussing them. I think the way I consider them are more like living documents, so they could easily be amended in the future. Maybe we might see that some of the conditions we put in those bylaws might not be as functional in the future. Specifically, think I know there's been a lot of discussion with public comments, how much time to be allotted. So I think maybe that's something to consider, that the bylaws can be amended. I'm sure we want to get them as tight as we can on the initial approval, but I believe they can be amended in the future. And that's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Holtzman, you have your hand up.
Yes, I do. The bylaws keep coming up here. And I would just like to point out that the whole discussion of the subject of this motion could be incorporated into our discussion of the bylaws. So we would actually write in the bylaws what sort of officers we want to have, instead of deciding that before we even decide how to put it in the bylaws. I mean, we really need to be wordsmithing the bylaws as soon as possible.
Commissioner Wong. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to ask so we could have the person that made the initial motion clarify to address Commissioner Franklin's concern, or not a concern, but question about the vice chair issue. As I had understood the motion, it would be that there would be 2 co-chairs and no vice chair. But I just think we need just for the record, if we could make sure that that is what the moving individual intended. And I apologize.
It was Commissioner Wong, and she's next up to speak.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, I expected that I might have to propose something to resolve that. Yes, and I guess I was assuming there would be no need for a vice chair if there were co-chairs. The simple kind of answer to that. I mean, I'm open if others disagree. I do think, since we're in the midst of discussing the bylaws, that, we can incorporate whatever our decision is here into that. And I think that hopefully won't be too difficult.
Are we then prepared to have a roll call on this?
Commissioner Holtzman.
Again, having 2 co-chairs doesn't clarify who will preside over which meeting when. As you recall, I suggested adopting a calendar of commissioners to chair, to settle that in advance. You'll see in the version of the bylaws that I proposed that I was going to have the vice chair serve as the clerk of the commission, like San Diego has. If you don't have a vice chair, then maybe who's ever not presiding at that week's or that month's meetings, the other co-chair would be the clerk of the commissioner, or something like that. So again, I just think it's a little confusing to have 2 co-chairs without having written down the power sharing arrangement in advance.
Commissioner Wong, then Commissioner Maeda, and then Commissioner Stetcher.
Okay, just to again respond, and we can incorporate it into my motion. I guess I suggested that they could alternate. At one point, I know there was a suggestion of having rotating chairs. So at that time, there didn't seem to be a problem about trying to determine who's going to be the chair. I mean, obviously, whoever raised that thought that that was a process that could be determined. And I think that if you have co-chairs, they could take turns. And I mean, I don't think we need to write it into the bylaws, but I do think that they could work that out. And I would, as a commissioner, be perfectly comfortable with their arrangement.
Commissioner Maeda, then Commissioner Stetcher, and Commissioner Shidoran.
I have served in 2 different organizations in a co-chair type capacity in the past, where the co-chairs get along, have shared goals. There's no problem power sharing. And the typical way to do it is one chairs a meeting, and the next time there's a meeting, the other one chairs. It doesn't have to be that way, but whatever they can work out. But I think the point of this is to have people that are able to work together and they can work it out. I understand we have to adjust some of the things in the bylaws, which I don't think will be a big problem to do.
Commissioner Stetcher, then Commissioner Shidoran, and Commissioner Holtzman. Commissioner Stetcher, you're on mute.
Thank you. I'm having a lot of control problems with my computer this evening. My electronic hand isn't working, and following that, my brain is not working entirely well. I just wanted to suggest that we could put in the bylaws a simple resolution here. If we decide to have co-commissioners, then we would say, as we're drafting the bylaws, that the commissioners need to indicate 2 weeks in advance who will be chairing the next meeting and what the role of the co-commissioner might be. So they could resolve this over time, and it could change as is their joint will.
Commissioner Shidoran, did you still want to make a comment?
I lowered my hand. My comments were better.
Commissioner Holtzman.
Well, 2 things. Well, first, I'd love to hear from Commissioner Maeda a little bit more about his co-chair experiences and what those organizations were, and whether they had bylaws to clarify the roles of the co-chairs. And second of all, I would say, you really can't count on the 2 people in the 2 co-chair positions getting along and agreeing, because we may disagree on issues as things go on. And look, it could be like saying, oh, it'll be fine if we appoint Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell as the co-chairs of the U.S. Senate. I mean, how would that work out?
Shall I respond? So one of the organizations was the Asian Pacific American Media Coalition. I'm currently chair, but at one point there were co-chairs, 2 different people. Again, we've just rotated. Each of us represented different organizations within the coalition. We had to, avoid favoring our own individual organization, but we managed to work it out. There were never any issues. In terms of spokespeople, it was often pretty clear who should be the spokesperson for a particular matter, because I had more subject matter expertise in one area, and the other, my co-chair, had it in a different area, et cetera. The other one was East West Players, the theater company that I've been involved in for 27 years. And we have had co-chairs in that situation as well. Again, no problem. In neither situation did we have, really what I would consider to be competing type of interests. So obviously, having Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer being co-chairs is something that wouldn't work. I understand that, but I don't perceive us in this commission as having those kinds of interests. I feel we're all rowing towards the same goal, especially when it doesn't come to, this is more process stuff rather than substantive stuff at this point, I think. I don't anticipate really having trouble working things out in a co-chair capacity.
Are we then prepared to take a roll call on the motion on the floor to have co-chairs instead of a chair and vice chair? Ty?
Actually, I see one more commissioner.
Oh, I apologize.
Segura.
Does this motion include Commissioner Stetcher's suggestion of the 1-year term length?
the motion as made and seconded did not include that.
Let me just announce Commissioner Obregon has joined the meeting.
Commissioner Maeda, you have your hand up.
Oh, I believe the bylaws provide for a one-year term. I mean, the draft, I realize we haven't adopted them, but is that not correct, as currently drafted?
That is correct.
Of course,
There was a discussion.
Yeah.
There was discussion at the last meeting about the rotating chair or shortening the time. And there was a vote taken at that time on giving staff, me, direction on what draft to bring back. And the vote at that time was that it would be for a one-year term. And so that's the draft I prepared and brought back consistent with that direction.
Commissioner Morales.
Just in terms of, because we have to, before this meeting, we had some information that was sent to us regarding the time frame in terms of when we are going to have the information to be able to draw the lines, et cetera, all the data and information from the census. Does that then extend our time frame or our expectation for how long we're going to be meeting, or we still have to do this in a short amount of time?
Currently, our deadline remains December 15th. It would take some legislation at the state level to change that, or it would take the county somehow changing their primary election date. And I don't know the odds of that. So right now we are still looking at a December 15th deadline. All right, Ty, I think you can take the vote now.
So commissioners, I will now take the roll. Please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Jean Franklin?
No.
Commissioner David Holtzman?
No.
Commissioner Daniel Maeda?
Yes.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza?
No.
Commissioner Apollonio Morales?
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon?
Well, I'm sorry, but I'm not briefed on exactly what we are doing. I came late and I'm hesitant to vote one way or the other right now.
Sure, you can abstain.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpinella Segura?
Yes.
Commissioner Hyla Soto?
Yes.
Commissioner Saira Soto?
Yes.
Commissioner Priya Sridharan?
Yes.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher?
Yes.
Commissioner John Vento?
Yes.
Commissioner Carolyn Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Dorina Wong?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, with that, then we're back to considering the nominations. And as Commissioner Maeda did point out, we did not have a second on any of the ones. The first nomination I think that was made came from Commissioner Mendoza nominating Daniel Maeda for chair and Commissioner Sridharan for vice chair. In light of the vote to go with co-chairs instead of a chair and a vice chair, I think are there any new motions that folks want to make?
Commissioner Mendoza, you have your hand up.
Yes, I was going to say I'll amend my motion to nominate Commissioner Maeda and Commissioner Sridharan to be co-chairs of our commission.
We have a second.
Commissioner Stetcher?
That was I second.
Okay, any discussion of that? Seeing, Commissioner Williams.
I have a question. Is this the slate of officers that we're putting together? There were other motions, or we're going to vote on, because I think there were more than those nominations. So we're going to vote on each one separately, or I'm not sure what the process is. What are we voting on?
The motion that you're voting on now is Commissioner Mendoza did nominate a slate. He nominated 2, and that was seconded. So this vote on this motion is a vote for those 2 together, a slate.
And then there were others who were nominated. Will we be also voting on them? They didn't have a second. So will we be taking those? I'm still not clear how we're going to do this.
Right now, the way procedurally we need to do it, because we do have a motion that was seconded, we need to vote on this one. If there are 9 votes on this one, then the co-chairs are filled. There would be no other nominations, because the nomination here was for this a slate.
Well, I made a nomination. I made a nomination as well.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure. That's taking the first one. There were several that were not nominated. So we're going to take one and not the other. I would like to go ahead. All right. I was going to propose maybe we create a slate of nominations for us to vote on, since there are at least 2 that were put forth, and then select the chair and the vice chair that way, rather than this motion. There's another motion that didn't get a second, which I think has an opportunity to do so, where we should give Commissioner Franklin an opportunity for a second on that motion. So, because it just seems like we'll have competing motions. So I'm asking for clarification and possibly creating a motion to create a slate that we would vote on. Perhaps chair and then vice chair.
Well, I think the motion, whatever it is, given what was just voted, it would be 1 co-chair and then a second co-chair, as opposed to chair and vice chair. And I think then what we can, I think there's essentially, you're requesting, if I understand this correctly, that the motion that we have on the floor and that was seconded, you would like to see that withdrawn and have the motions be only, and of course we would have to get the consent of the one that made the motion, but you're asking for consideration of nominating and voting on 1 individual at a time. Is that?
I guess we had 2 motions that did not have a second. We had 3 motions, 1 had a second, and then the other 2 did not. The 2 that did not were nominations for the vice chair and vice chair. Now it's for co-chairs. I think if we vote on 1, it seems like we've got another hanging. So I'd like us to, I don't know if it is to consider withdrawing that motion and looking at, a slate, but somehow it seems like we would not be giving Commissioner Pumpkin's motion the hearing that it needs.
So we have a few hands up. Commissioner Morales, then Commissioner Franklin, Commissioner Orpanela-Segura, Commissioner Maeda, and then Commissioner Holtzman.
Just a point of clarification, just in terms of Robert's rules, aren't these folks that have been nominated supposed to accept the nomination?
I believe, well, actually, it's always been my recommendation, and it's included in the bylaws, to follow Rosenberg's Rules of Order, not Robert's Rules of Order. That aside, I think you do raise a good point. I believe that Commissioner Maeda did make clear in the last meeting he was open to that. We have not heard from Commissioner Sridharan. So Commissioner Sridharan, if the motion that's on the floor stands, are you willing?
I am, but I wonder if we should move quickly to either substitute a motion that enables us to sort of have fuller discussion, opportunity for seconds of other motions, essentially not vote on a slate, or just take the vote and those who choose can vote the slate down, so we can then talk about this, as Commissioner Williams suggested, right, to create more space to talk about individual candidates and not be locked into a slate.
All right, so we can treat, why don't we treat with Commissioner Williams' consent? Commissioner Williams, are you willing to make a motion, a substitute motion that for a single individual for co-chair, with the idea that we would be considering individuals as opposed to a slate?
Yes. So do I need to repeat that? I'm willing to do, let me make sure I understand. So what we're looking at is that we're considering individuals for it rather than a slate. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, you're making a substitute motion that that we consider individuals for each spot instead of a slate.
Yes, that's good.
We have a second for the substitute motion. Commissioner Wong?
Second.
Yeah, I second. Yeah.
Okay, so any discussion of the substitute motion?
So Commissioner Franklin, you have had your hand up and you're muted.
Yeah, I'm lost because, and this is just for discussion. When we opened up talking about, nominations for the chair and vice chair, Commissioner Mendoza he nominated Commissioner Maeda and Commissioner Sridharan. And then I made a nomination for Commissioner Mendoza and for Commissioner Holtzman. Then we started the conversation about having co-chairs. So now, we've remedied that. Now we voted to have co-chairs, all right? But voting on Commissioner Maeda and Commissioner Sridharan and not considering my nomination of Commissioner Maeda and Commissioner Holtzman, it just got lost. So I'm just wondering what happened to my motion or my nomination, and that's why Commissioner Williams brought it up. It's like it was overlooked.
Now, procedurally, what happened on that was there was Commissioner Mendoza's motion, and then there was a second. So once you had a motion and a second, that has to be voted on if it's not withdrawn. So that's how that happened. Now, to address your concern, and Commissioner Williams has made a substitute motion that we'll now vote on, that we take the nominations for co-chairs individually and not jointly as a slate. And if this motion, if this motion is approved by a majority, then it wipes out the underlying motion, and now they'll have to reopen nominate a motion on an individual basis as opposed to a slate for co-chairs. So unless there's any further.
May I offer a suggestion? It seems that we have a lively discussion on this. So would it be possible if the motions are withdrawn to allow us to start from a clean slate and see if there are any additional nominations, to see if folks are interested in him or her being nominated, and then we move forward to presenting a motion? I think that may help with clarity.
Commissioner Maeda, then Commissioner Holtzman, Commissioner Wong, and Commissioner Williams.
Thank you. with respect, Commissioner Williams, I don't think your original motion or the motion that's on the table really addressed Commissioner Franklin's concern. And I think now you recognize that. It's extremely important, I think, to the commission and certainly to me personally, to make sure that everybody feels like they have, all the options that they want on the table. And I know it's unorthodox to do something other than one motion at a time in terms of the slate and so forth. But why don't we do this? Why don't we, as Commissioner Orpinella-Segura suggested, open this up and get everybody who's interested in participating, and then put together a couple slates, figure out who's willing to work with each other, and then put 2 or 3 slates up, and then we vote on that. Can we do it that way?
Commissioner Holtzman, then Commissioner Wong, then Commissioner Williams, and Commissioner Stetcher.
All right, look, everybody, I have a little bit of experience with running board meetings and things. I was president of League of Women Voters chapter for some time. And I will say that it's, I think, very important to know what the rules are for this particular process, whether or not they're in the bylaws, before we go forward with the process. For instance, are we planning on doing an election? And if so, what would the rules of the election be? How many votes would be needed to win, et cetera, et cetera? Or are we planning on doing an appointment process where a slate is nominated and then everybody votes on whether or not to approve that? And again, we'd have to know how many votes would be required to approve that slate. Right now, this body does not even have an official parliamentary authority to guide it. But I imagine Rosenberg's rules have, speak to how you're supposed to elect officers. And I'm pretty sure Robert's rules do. So, maybe we can choose one of those, or maybe we should just hammer out the process and how it's going to work before we start entertaining names.
Commissioner Wong?
Yes, thank you. I guess I understood, as I understood it, the reason I seconded Commissioner Williams' motion was to allow us to be able to talk about all the candidates or any interested candidates. It may have been my misunderstanding of what the motion was, because I agree that Commissioner Franklin's motion, we should be able to think through that, and think through all the candidates who might be interested and have a discussion about that. And, and then I think we can come up with, nominations of specific individuals or a combination of individuals or whatever. I just wanted us to have the opportunity to have the discussion without having to vote necessarily on a slate and then go back, because there wouldn't really be an opportunity for more discussion if we voted on the slate right away. So that was my kind of interpretation of that and expectation.
Commissioner Williams, then Commissioner Stetcher.
That was my interpretation of it too, Commissioner Wong, that rather than voting, I guess, in a serial fashion on the nominations, we get a nomination and we get a second. We had 2 nominations that we were considering, that we would reconsider the motion that was there. And what we would do is open it up, and which would also include additional nominations or for people who might be interested. But I wanted to make sure we included Commissioner Franklin's input, and again, being able to open it up. And the question is, I guess what's still not clear is what's next. How do we manage that process? If we have 6 people that we're considering, how do we go from there? What's the next step? So there still seems to me to be a piece that's missing.
Commissioner Stetcher, then Commissioner Holtzman, and Commissioner Orpinella-Segura.
Thank you. I'd like to suggest a process. I think it's 3 steps. 1, we take nominations. To this point, I've heard 3 names mentioned. 2, we have some conversation discussion. 3, each of us gets 2 votes. We vote for one co-commissioner and the other co-chair and the other co-chair from among those who are nominated. And the 2 people with the most votes become the 2 co-chairs. I think that process works if there are a small number of nominees. If there are 7 or 8 nominees, then it gets much more complicated. But I hope we don't need a motion to decide on the process, but that's one way we could move forward.
Commissioner Holtzman?
Absolutely, we would need a motion to decide on the process. And I think we should do 2 things today. 1, decide on the process. 2, entertain nominations, and then stop there. And then wait till next week so the candidates, whoever, can make statements, can suggest to people why they think they'd be best for the office, as well as open it up for public comments on the nominations. I don't think there's any rush to getting a chair today or co-chairs today. And I think it's very important that we, 1, define the process by agreement of the whole committee, what the process is going to be. And then give the public and others a chance to comment on any nominations. So that's how I think we should do it. I mean, if I don't know about the vote for 2 idea. I mean, maybe it could work, and you'd have to specify whether you can vote both your votes on one person, or something like that, or if you could vote for just one person and not the other, or abstain, and then you'd have to define how many votes it takes to win, because right now it says it takes 9 votes for any official action of this commission. And again, I'm a League of Women Voters person and also involved in designing election systems. So I really just think an election system should be clearly defined before you use it.
Commissioner Orpanella Segura?
I believe that the first step that we should take is to withdraw the commission. I mean, the motion, because there is a motion that has been seconded. Correct, Holly?
That's correct. We have 2 motions. Commissioner Williams' motion was seconded, but we also have the original motion that was made by Commissioner Mendoza for the co-chairs. So you would need to check to see if Commissioner Mendoza, and I believe that was seconded by Commissioner Stetcher, whether they would be willing to withdraw that one.
So if it's possible, commissioners, and with the consideration of the entire commission, if you can withdraw your motion so that we can move forward with the discussions of the process, and et cetera.
Commissioner Mendoza, you have your hand up.
Thank you. We've taken a vote on one motion today. That was to have co-chairs, and I came away thinking, maybe wrongly, that Commissioner Soto wanted to have gender equality. So to my mind, it was a male and a female that were going to be nominated. And now going forward, is that to say that we can vote on and have 2 men or 2 women and not have gender equality?
That's any responses or discussion of that question?
Commissioner Williams.
I raised that question at the last meeting when we were talking about chairs, that we would, that ideally it would be a man and a woman, gender equality. And I looked at that because I was looking at the statistics in the county, and it's basically 50% men, 50% women, even though on the commission, it's not quite that. So that was something I raised, and I would still like to see that be something that we would consider as a representative body of the county. So I'd still like to see us consider that.
Commissioner Holtzman, then Commissioner Saida Soto, and Commissioner Wong.
Again, in a role as sort of an advisor to the commission, because I know about election systems, I should tell you that it's common among political parties to have positions that are reserved for a man or for a woman. I was growing up, the local Democratic Party had a committee man and a committee woman from each electoral district. Party delegations, both major parties to the national conventions are supposed to be gender balanced. So if you want to do it that way, we could, revise what we've decided to decide that there will be one co-chair man and one co-chair woman, and then they would be the co-chairs. So, I mean, that would be the most straightforward way to adopt this sort of notion, which is not such a bad notion. I mean, gender balance or whatever is great, except then what happens if you get someone who's non-binary and say they're being left out? Like, I don't know if you saw the coalition comment letter. It was saying we should refer to people as them and their instead of his or her. Yeah, anyway, so that's just a suggestion. You could just change what we just said and say instead of two co-chairs, you're going to have a co-chairman and a co-chairwoman, or a chairman and a chairwoman, and they would serve as co-chairs, however you'd want to put it.
Commissioner Saira Soto?
Thank you. This isn't necessarily in support of or against Commissioner Mendoza's motion, but I think we want to be sure to think about diversity in a broader sense, and not just diversity in terms of gender, but we as a county, we are diverse in a very, very broad way, racially. I mean, I don't need to go through the long list of it, but I just want to bring that to the forefront as we're thinking about making our decision.
Commissioner Wong?
Yes, I think when I suggested also that there be gender balance, I think as Commissioner Williams says, that's an ideal and it could be a factor, but it is up to each commission to make their own judgment about who they may want as the co-chairs. So, I mean, unless we had it in our bylaws, we wouldn't necessarily have to require a male and female, but I think that just in terms of values that we strive for and to represent the diversity, we can consider that as a factor when we're trying to select one of the co-chairs. I wasn't suggesting we put it in the bylaws.
Commissioner Mendoza?
Thank you. I think it was last meeting that I asked who had an interest in filling the two posts, which I guess are going to be the same now as we go forward. And I'm wondering if that's changed, if people are volunteering now to be considered for those two posts.
I have a
Commissioner Williams, then Commissioner Franklin. Commissioner Williams, you are muted.
Thank you. I'm volunteering for one of the posts. Yeah. I like to be considered.
Commissioner Franklin.
Okay. My question is, now are we stating that we will be voting or for nominations for a woman, a female and a male? Have we decided on that?
I don't believe that has been decided.
Okay.
I've heard that there is a value of the commission. They want to have diversity, gender, and broader than gender. And I believe Commissioner Wong then commented that it would be up to each commission to decide, while that could be a goal, that they would need to assess, who they thought would be a good leader that could build consensus or whatever values they want in a chair. So I think there right now that what I'm hearing is that is a goal, but we've stopped short of declaring that that is a requirement.
So do we have to put a motion forward for discussion and a vote on?
Well, right now, I think we're still waiting to see if Commissioner Mendoza is willing to withdraw his original motion that was seconded by Commissioner Stetcher.
Commissioner Obregon, then Commissioner Holtzman, and Commissioner Mendoza.
Yes, what I was, I think what I'm confused on is, because it seemed like we were gonna vote on co-commissioners, but that didn't proceed. Did we ever vote on having co-commissioners, or are we gonna stay traditional with a chair and a vice chair? I'm not clear on that.
That was the discussion and vote that took place just as you joined. So there was a robust discussion on, and the commission decided to have 2 co-chairs instead of a chair and vice chair. So that decision has been made.
Commissioner Obregon, you are muted.
Yeah, okay. So that, we've already decided there's gonna be co-chairs.
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Holtzman, then Commissioner Mendoza, and Commissioner Stetcher.
Okay, so for what it's worth, the agenda for tomorrow's meeting of the San Diego Independent Redistricting Commission, which you know has a very similar mandate to ours, is on letterhead. And that letterhead shows a chair and a vice chair. And the chair is a man and the vice chair is a woman. It seems to be from their names, at least. So if you want to emulate that and have a man and a woman at the top, then you're going to have co-chairs. I suggest someone make a motion that one of the chairs be a man and one of the chairs be a woman. And I don't think that would conflict with the previous motion that's already adopted.
Commissioner Mendoza, then Commissioner Stetcher.
Thank you. To my knowledge, 4 people have expressed an interest or a willingness to serve as a co-chair. And if it serves the commission, perhaps we could hear from each of them for whatever allotted amount of time, a few minutes, to talk to the rest of the commissioners and talk about what they see as important and why they think they're well served. We'd be well served in having them in that post, and we can then take a motion. So if that's the case, I will withdraw my motion for that to occur.
Commissioner Stetcher, then Commissioner Holtzman.
I will withdraw my second to clear the boards so that we can start this conversation fresh. But I do think we should decide what the nomination and election process will be. I don't think we want to have a motion for a particular pair. I think we want to vote on individuals.
Commissioner Holtzman.
Again, I agree that we should define what the election appointment process is going to be, and perhaps get candidates into that process. But well, maybe we should just first do that. But I do think it would be best if we waited on candidate statements and the actual election or selection until next week.
Just so we have clarification on timing, Gayla, our next meeting rather, is not next week, right? It'll be the second, it'll be 2 weeks from today.
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
Groundhog Day.
Commissioner Shidoran, you have your hand up.
Sure. So just quickly, so I think we should decide today who the co-chairs are, in part because we're moving to an every other week schedule. And I think the 2 weeks in between, especially early on in this process, are a vital time for those co-chairs to get to work. I would like to make a motion that we follow the process that Commissioner Stetcher outlined, where essentially we identify all candidates, all commissioners can cast 2 votes, and thereby select the co-chair.
To be clear, what you mean is all commissioners have 1 vote for 1 slot, right? Not 2 votes for 1 person.
Correct. Yes.
Commissioner
Is
Mendoza?
there
I second it.
any discussion? Or can we go ahead and proceed to a roll call vote on that process? Okay. Oh,
Commissioner Williams and then Commissioner Holtzman.
Will we have, just on that process, will it be a voice vote? Because at one point it had mentioned not a voice vote, but what is it, a secret ballot? So what kind of vote are we doing? A voice vote after this? So I just wanted to know what we.
It would be a voice vote. The Brown Act doesn't permit a secret ballot.
Okay.
Commissioner Holtzman, then Commissioner Wong.
Okay, I'd like clarification on the motion. If the motion passes, first of all, would we then entertain nominations? And how would that work? And then how would we move on to actually having the election? Would be having both chairs selected in one election, in one round of voting? Or would we be having one chair selected in the first round of voting and then have a second round of voting to select the second chair? I'm not clear on how it would work. And you know, how nominations would work for one thing, and then how the election would work.
Commissioner Stetcher, I don't know if you can respond to that question since it's your motion.
Yeah, the intent of the motion is this first step would be nominations, where any of us could nominate another commissioner, or people could self-nominate, and those people who agreed to be nominated would then be the pool of candidates. The second step would be some discussion. The candidates could talk about their qualifications, or other people could endorse them. And then the third step would be a single round of voting in which each commissioner cast votes for 2 individuals. And the 2 individuals who receive the highest number of votes would be the 2 co-chairs. And the only thing that's lacking in that is some consideration of gender balance, because I hadn't thought about it when I made the motion. But that's what's on the table now. And if each of the commissioners made sure that their votes were gender balanced, that might achieve the goal that we had.
Commissioner Holtzman?
Just to clarify, then I want to ask Holly if election of officers is considered an official act of the commission, and whether that would require that a candidate receive 9 affirmative votes to be elected.
I think this is a gray area on whether someone would need 9 votes. I will say that the traditional way that this is done is there's a motion and a vote is taken, and like anything else here, if we get 9 votes, then that the motion for that candidate carries the day. The procedure that is on the table right now is different than that. I admitting that this is a gray area, I'm more comfortable if it's 9 votes.
Commissioner Obregon?
When you suggest the 9 votes, if we were to go with the idea from Commissioner Stecker that we, of the 4 or 5 nominees that want to, if we were to have a vote and select that, we just might end up with 9. And also not dealing with the gender issue, that might just end up getting resolved on its own also. So I'm not sure if we need to have rules or for those 2 things, because, you know, it just might work itself out when we decide which 2 people we seek for to be leaders.
Commissioner Wong, then Commissioner Holtzman, and then Commissioner Maeda.
I guess I just want to clarify in my own mind how we're really selecting the co-chairs are the top 2 vote getters, basically, right? That's what we're saying. Hopefully it'll be 9. Hopefully they will both get 9, but that's not necessarily the case. Is that what is? I guess I'm asking if that's the process or the results.
I mean, that's what I proposed, if I could just interject to clarify. And I'm not sure it's the best thing, but it's what I was recommending.
Commissioner Holtzman, then Commissioner Maeda.
Again, as advice, if you have a situation where 9 votes are required for a winner and nobody gets 9 votes after the ballots are cast or after the votes are cast, you could decide to have a system where the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated, and then you take another ballot. That's how political conventions often do such things. So think about that.
Commissioner Maeda.
So first of all, I apologize that my internet connection for some reason is unstable tonight. So if I disappear, that's why. I was just going to suggest exactly what Commissioner Holtzman said. We take the vote. If someone has 9, they get in. If we don't have 2 that have 9, you drop the last, the lowest vote total, and you vote again. And you do that till you have someone who has 9.
I think that's a good approach. And with that, I think we can proceed to have a roll call vote on this process. Ty? Again, just a reminder to folks, this is a motion to proceed using the process that Commissioner Stetcher put forward.
So, Commissioner, I will now take the roll. Please be prepared to unmute yourself and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Jean Franklin?
Yes.
Commissioner David Holtzman?
No, because I think the election should be next week. Otherwise, I got no problem with it.
Commissioner Daniel Maeda?
Yes.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza?
Yes.
Commissioner Apollonio Morales?
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon?
Yes.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpanella Segura?
Yes.
Commissioner Hyla Soto?
Yes.
Commissioner Saida Soto?
Yes.
Commissioner Priya Sridharan?
Yes.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher?
Yes.
Commissioner John Vento?
Yes.
Commissioner Carolyn Williams?
Yes.
And Commissioner Dorina Wong?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, with that, and my understanding of it at that point is right now we are taking nominations. You can nominate others or you can nominate yourself.
Commissioner Morales, then Commissioner Mendoza, and Commissioner Holtzman.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Sarah Soto.
Commissioner Mendoza?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Maeda and Commissioner Shidrohan. Excuse me.
Commissioner Holtzman, then Commissioner Saida Soto, and Commissioner Franklin.
I would like to nominate myself as well as Commissioner Williams.
Commissioner Saida Soto, Commissioner Franklin, and Commissioner Stetcher.
Yes, for gender balance, now I'm nominating Commissioner Williams and Commissioner Maeda.
Commissioner Saida Soto, and then Commissioner Stetcher.
If this is an appropriate time to, well, first I'd like to nominate Commissioner Williams. And then if this is an appropriate time to decline the nomination for myself. Thank you, Commissioner Morales. I appreciate your support.
Commissioner Stetcher.
I have no further nominations. The candidate I was going to nominate has already been mentioned.
All right, at this point, then we have 4 individuals who've been nominated. Commissioners Maeda, Sridharan, Holtzman, and Williams. At this point, I understand, I think in the process was each of the nominees could speak for a few minutes. And following that, we will then take a vote. So with that, why don't we start with Commissioner Williams?
Thank you for Commissioner Holtzman for nominating me and those who did. I'm interested, when I first was chosen, I thought about, would I really want to be in a leadership position? And I thought to myself, maybe not, if there was a chair and a vice chair, maybe not chair, but vice chair. And I thought about that because I felt it was something that I could bring something to the table. I've been a chair of a number of organizations, and I think some of my sweet spots are the strengths that I bring to it is helping organizations in the formation stage, building on their strengths, building coalitions, moving toward results, finding the sweet spot of every person involved, finding a way that every person has an equal voice and equal participation in the process. Those are the things that I feel that I bring to any board. And I feel with my experience over the years that I've shown that as a leader, I can do that. And I do it in a way, as I mentioned, participation. I really believe that everybody has an equal voice and everybody should be represented. And one of the things here, we're representing the district, the whole county of Los Angeles. And it's important that we all participate and speak up and be responsible for the process that we will produce, for the product that we'll produce. So that's what I'd like to say about my role. And I like the idea of co-chairs rather than a chair and a vice chair. So that's why I'm interested.
Oh, thank you. Commissioner Holtzman.
All right. My fellow commissioners, hi. I have quite a bit of experience running board meetings. Like I said, I was president of the League of Women Voters of Los Angeles for 4 years. I ran 4 years worth of board meetings, and I've also been through a lot of bylaws fights at the league. League people are very picky about what goes into bylaws. The executive director of my organization, the league at the time, really liked my style of running meetings, and you might too. Maybe you don't, but she said I run meetings kind of like a talk show host, basically drawing people out and making sure I understand what everybody says and things like that, and occasionally cracking a joke or two. I also emceed various events for the League of Women Voters, fundraisers and policy forums. I have moderated quite a few candidate forums during elections where candidates are asked questions, and not exactly debates, and they all get to answer various questions. I've been on television as a representative of the League of Women Voters as well, with regards to a ballot measure that was on the ballot. The League doesn't endorse or oppose candidates for office, but we will take positions on ballot measures from time to time. So anyway, I'm quite competent for doing this job. Would be pleased to do it. I was thinking I might be best suited as vice chair if we were going to have one of those, but I guess we're not. So anyway, please consider my candidacy. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Commissioner Sridharan.
Thank you. So a little unorthodox, but at this point, I actually want to withdraw my name from consideration. And I'll just to give, I feel like I owe you an explanation as to why. I was willing to serve, and I appreciate Commissioner Mendoza's nomination because I do have a leadership background, a background in this type of facilitation, and particularly a background in redistricting. I thought it was important to see a certain a balance of gender representation to the extent possible in the leadership. And not knowing who else might be willing to serve, I was willing to serve if called upon by my fellow commissioners. But I have a lot of confidence in the three nominees that you've got. I think Commissioner Williams is an excellent candidate. I think you have an opportunity to achieve a co-chair leadership that has both a male commissioner and a female commissioner. And so you don't necessarily need me to serve in that role. I'm happy to assist in the background as is appropriate. And serve in any other way that I can to move the collective ball forward. But I don't think I need to be a co-chair to do that. So I will be at the disposal of the co-chairs and the commission is needed.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Commissioner Maeda.
Thank you. I have a number of leadership roles in my community, but rather than talk about that, I'll just mention I think the 8 of us that first started back in December, I think you all know me pretty well. You've seen my style. I think the new 6 have gotten a sense of it as well. I'm very interested in collaboration, power sharing. I like the idea of having these task forces, and I would love to empower many of you to lead those task forces because we have an awful lot to get done. I think the most important thing, in addition to, obviously, we're going to be gathering and analyzing a tremendous amount of data, but the most important thing is for us to meet the community, meet the stakeholders out there who know the community the best, and gather all their input and then synthesize all of that and then write the damn report, come up with the maps. That's a tremendously, it's a big job. And I'm going to need, if elected, I'm going to need all of you to pull with us to get that thing done. But I'd be honored to serve. Whatever your decision, of course, I'll be working hard, but I'll be honored to serve as one of your co-chairs. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I think at this point, then the procedure would be we would do a roll call vote. And when it is your turn, you cast 2 votes for different candidates. Right now, the candidates are Commissioners Maeda, Williams, and Holtzman. So Ty, I think I'll turn that over to you.
Great, thanks, Holly. So commissioners, I'm going to be taking roll call, so please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Commissioner Maeda and Commissioner Williams.
Commissioner David Holtzman.
I will vote just for Commissioner Williams and leave my second vote alone so that the assembled may choose between the 2 men.
Commissioner Daniel Maeda.
I guess I'm not as gallant as Commissioner Holtzman. I'll vote for myself as well as Commissioner Williams.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Commissioner Williams and Commissioner Maeda.
Commissioner Apolonio Morales.
Commissioner Williams and Commissioner Maeda.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon. You are currently muted, Commissioner Obregon.
There we go. Williams and Maeda as the co-chairs.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpanela Segura.
Commissioners Williams and Maeda.
Commissioner Hyla Soto,
Commissioner Maeda and Commissioner Williams.
Commissioner Saida Soto,
Commissioner Williams and Commissioner Maeda.
Commissioner Priya Sridharan,
Commissioner Williams and Commissioner Maeda.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher,
Commissioner Maeda and Commissioner Williams.
Commissioner John Vento,
Commissioners Maeda and Commissioner Williams.
Commissioner Carolyn Williams,
Commissioner Holtzman and Commissioner Williams.
and Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Commissioner Williams and Commissioner Maeda.
Thank you. And then tallying up the votes. We have 1 vote for Commissioner Holtzman. $11 votes for Commissioner Maeda. Am I counting that right?
I had 12.
1 second. 1, 2. Yep, 12 votes for Commissioner Maeda. Yes. And then I have $14 votes for Commissioner Williams.
Okay, I want to congratulate you on selecting your co-chairs. And the good part here is Gayla and I can, turn it over to you all to run meetings except for our staff presentations. And I do think, though, that takes us to our next agenda item 6B, which is the bylaws. And I can give a brief staff presentation on that and we'll take public comments. But I think, I don't know if we want to toss a coin or if we want to go in reverse alphabetical order. I suggest that as being someone whose name starts with W between the 2 co-chairs about who will pick up the chair duties at this point.
I think Commissioner Williams should take over since she got more votes than me.
Oh, that's as good a reason as any.
May I also just make a suggestion because I'm looking at the time, and I would like to suggest that maybe we set a time frame to discuss the bylaws. That's reasonable because I do have the feeling they're going to be continued, particularly given that the changes of how the co-chairs were selected will need to be rewritten in the bylaws. I do have 2 staff reports I would like to make sure we get done. One was a selection process report that's been carried forward now to 3 meetings. So I'm just wanting to put that out there in terms of timing. And I see Commissioner Holtzman is up as well.
Just let me add to that and then I'll turn it over to Commissioner Holtzman. Picking up on Gayla's suggestion, what we could do is just have a limited amount of time where we focus and get initial feedback on the communications piece. That is not a piece we've yet discussed. And obviously the chair duties and stuff I can adjust given what happened today and come back. But with that said, Commissioner Holtzman.
Yes, I would like to suggest, if I have to make a motion to do it, I will, that we just move right now to the commissioner selection process report so we can get that off our agenda. It's been hanging on our agenda for several meetings. And then maybe get that, I'd have to look at the agenda to see what the others will have it here. The report is, the ad hoc working group, that could take forever. But at least I think we should just get the one easy staff report taken care of before we move into bylaws discussion. Do I have to make a motion for that, or can whoever chairing just decide to take that out of order?
I think the Chair Williams can decide whether to take that out of order.
I think let's go ahead and take it out of order because it has been hanging. So yes.
Commissioner Saida Soto, you have your hand up. Commissioner Saida Soto, you're muted.
Apologize for that. Gayla, does that require a presentation?
No, not really. I had 2 or 3
Okay.
slides that just hit the highlights, but if you've all read the report and you have no questions about it, it would require a motion, a second, and a roll call.
Okay, I just thought I'm mindful that we have, I think, public comment on 6B, and we're almost at 9 p.m. Okay, thank you.
Okay, can we entertain a motion for that?
To take it out of order?
And take it out of order?
No.
I think as a,
Do we need I don't think we need a motion to take it out of order. I was thinking of a motion to approve it.
on this, you don't need a motion to take it out of order, but Gayla does have a staff presentation. We do have to officially ask for public comment. I don't think we have any public commenters on this item, but we do have to go through that process.
Okay. So Gayla, can we turn it over to you?
Yes, I can do a quick overview, and I did just check there were no Q&A comments on this. Again, I just want to acknowledge the 60 applicants. For those individuals who have been selected, you probably understand the detailed process. And when there were so many, all of them were so qualified. And what the commission, when the randomly 8 were selected, really looked at was what would be the balance. And so I had used the analogy of a symphony. A quick overview of the numbers are that in phase 1, the registrar recorder, county clerk had identified the 60 most qualified applicants, of which you were all a part of. They started out with 741 applications. They then eliminated those that did not meet such requirements as being registered voters, being residents of Los Angeles County. And from there, they narrowed the list down to 533. They did have at least 2 staff review each application to identify the 60. Many of you may have seen the phase 2 when the auditor controller did the random drawing of the 8 commissioners, from which the first 8 were selected. And phase 3 involved the selection of the 6 additional commissioners. What I have prepared for you is a report that documents the process. And a big part of that is not only the front piece, but really the phase 3 to show that the 14 of you do emulate the various demographics, the political party affiliations. And this then would become a standard report that we can put on the website. And when I have questions from outside, there will be one place that they go for common facts. So let me just confirm if there are any public speakers on this item. I do not see any. Are there questions from the commissioners on the report itself? Is there a motion? Commissioner Holtzman.
I have gone back and forth with Gayla on this report on several drafts. I would like to thank her for her earnest attention to my concerns, and think it's come out very well. So I move that we receive and approve of the report in this agenda item.
And I apologize, Chair Williams. I am so used to asking, is there a motion and is there a second? I did not mean to usurp your new role. So I will turn it over to you to see if there is a second.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, Commissioner Soto is second. And I think Holtzman placed the motion. So are we ready for the vote?
Commissioners, I will now take the roll call. Please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Yes.
Commissioner David Holtzman.
Yes.
Co-Chair Daniel Maeda.
Yes.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Yes.
Commissioner Apolonio Morales.
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
Yes.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpanella Segura.
Yes.
Commissioner Hyla Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Saira Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Priya Sridharan.
Yes.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher. Commissioner Brian Stetcher. Commissioner Brian Stetcher, you're currently muted. Commissioner Brian Stetcher, can you hear us? Commissioner Brian Stetcher, can you hear us?
I think you could pass him and come back.
Okay. Commissioner John Vento?
Yes.
Chair Carolyn Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Dorina Wong?
Yes.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher, can you hear us?
I'm thinking just to move things along, you could consider him as an abstention, involuntary abstention. And
I'm sorry, were you waiting for me?
Yes.
I vote in favor of approving the report. I had to reboot my computer because I got frozen.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gayla, for that. I guess where we'll move is where we have public comment. And that's Holly, back to bylaws.
yes, back to the bylaws. And again, I think what we're going to do is I'll give you a brief update, and then following Gayla's suggestion, if the commission agrees, I'll just you can all discuss the communications piece. We haven't yet discussed that, and give us some direction, and we can come back with a revised set. I do want to acknowledge that we did get some detailed public comments from a coalition, and it may or may not make sense at this stage, given the hour, for me to share my screen, but I did incorporate their comments to the extent they didn't touch on policy issues. So I did appreciate them and cleaned up and made sure I talked about the commission throughout as opposed to CRC and the commission. I did make the suggested change on the gender issues and a few other things that I did track in redline. But the two our primary areas, really potentially three, but the two primary areas that remain to be discussed are the communications piece, which is any type of limitations or disclosure requirements you would like to impose on yourselves as commissioners in terms of communications with folks outside of a public meeting. And also the duties of chair and vice chair, which we talked about not quite so much. And also there's still a little bit of work to be done on section 4.07 about declaring a vacancy. I think that's minor, and I would suggest, with the chair's pleasure, maybe 15 minutes of time here to give feedback and discussion on the communications piece, which is at section 4.08, and that addresses what I have there is a suggested, it was highlighted in the set that was turned around, was suggested restrictions on communication or obligations to disclose public communications you have with the public outside of a public meeting. And the law does not require any of these, but you, as a matter of policy and transparency, may want to consider them.
Okay. Any discussion?
Commissioner Williams, there are two public speakers who would like to comment on this agenda item.
Okay.
I'll turn it over to Ty, if that's okay with you.
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you. Gayla, are you going to be keeping time? Gayla, you're currently muted.
I was going to say, I get to try the new timer. Last time Ty did it.
And that's 2 minutes, right?
Yes.
2 minutes.
Okay. So we currently have two members of the public that is currently listed for item 6B. The first is Julia A. Gomez. So Julia A. Gomez, I will make you into a panelist. Please share your mic, and if you are comfortable, please share your camera as well. You will have 2 minutes once you begin speaking.
Hi, my name is Julia Gomez. I am a staff attorney at the ACLU of Southern California. I, along with another group, provided yesterday's letter with some recommendations, and I just want to highlight two of our recommendations. The first regarding notice for meetings. Currently, notices for meetings are required 72 hours ahead of the meeting. We urge the commission to provide more time. It's been actually very difficult with just 72 hours notice to do materials and then to put together draft letters and then to submit them the day before. So we strongly urge the commission to provide 7 to 14 days notice of public business meetings. And then as we get closer to the map adoption deadline, to provide a shorter notice period of 72 hours. And this is definitely something consistent with 1276, which applies to other counties and cities of 72-hour notice 28 days before the deadline. We also encourage the commission to have public meetings for subcommittees. This is a practice of the LA City Council, at least yesterday during their independent redistricting commission meeting, they held a public subcommittee meeting. And I believe that the California Citizens Redistricting Commission follows a similar process because of the body format. So again, we strongly encourage that as many subcommittees as possible be public, with notice and agenda and an opportunity for the public to comment.
Just a quick response, Ms. Gomez.
Mm-hmm.
I had a little trouble hearing you, but I think I got the gist. I just wanted to let you know that I have prepared a competing version of the bylaws. And today I amended it in response to your letter that you sent with the coalition. And as we discuss the points, I intend to bring up your comments as well. Especially when I show my version of suggested bylaws. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Gomez.
Our next public comment is from Alejandra Ramirez Zarate from the Advancement Project California. So Alejandra, I will make you into a panelist, and please share your mic. And if you're comfortable, please share your camera. And you will have 2 minutes.
Apologies for that. It takes some time to load. So good evening, esteemed commissioners. It's great to see you all again. And for those that weren't present at the previous meeting, it's great to see you for the first time. My name is Alejandra Ramirez Zarate. I'm here with Advancement Project California, also with our coalition partners in support of the letter that we did submit to you. Thank you so much for taking that into consideration. Thank you for your support last meeting and extending the time to 2 minutes. And thank you for your willingness to work with us. We're looking forward to working with the co-chairs, Commissioner Mayetta and Commissioner Williams. And the one item I wanted to highlight from our letter is the one that my coalition colleague Julia highlighted, which is to provide the public more than 72 hours notice for your business meetings. And particularly at this stage in the process, but really throughout, through December 15th, we know that as it gets closer to the map drawing process, per AB 1276, to highlight what Julia said, you will need to adjust and shift to changes that you need to make, pivots you may need to make more quickly. So then we would support a shift to 3 days. But again, to reiterate what Julia said, we're in support of 14 days notice, which is what's worked for the State Commission, and everything has worked out really well in terms of hearing from our community groups at the state level. And we want LA to succeed. We want you all to succeed in our community groups. As you know, as Commissioner Mayetta and others have stated, they represent the wide demographic and geographic diversity of our county. And they're working to prepare communities. They're working on presentations on Redistricting 101. This is really wonky and new for them, for some of them. So we're working to prepare them, but we would appreciate the additional time to have that time to make sure that we're translating materials, to make sure that they have the notices that they need, the materials that we need to disseminate across the county, especially within a COVID landscape. So we would really appreciate that from you. And we look forward to continue serving as your partners on this. We're here to support you, whatever resources you may need from CPLs in LA County. And thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you so much for your comments.
Our next public comment is from Fatima Malik, President of the League of Women Voters of Los Angeles County. Fatima, I will make you into a panelist, and please share your mic, and if you're comfortable, your camera as well.
And I'll just mention that I'm timing this on my iPhone if the other timer doesn't work.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Once again, my name is Fatima Malik. I'm President of League of Women Voters of Los Angeles County. I wanted to comment actually on 609, and thank you for extending the length of public comment to 2 minutes. I'd like the commission to consider equity with regards to this because it was mentioned that the chair would have the discretion to reduce or increase public time period. It's possible that those in line to speak early would have 2 minutes, and those who are at the end of the line may have that shortened and it may have less. And while organizations have resources to prepare time statements, underserved communities without these resources that we're trying to engage certainly would not. And while I really do emphasize with long meetings, I want to suggest that all public commenters be allowed at a minimum of 2 minutes to speak. I also want to as the same as my colleagues mentioning the Brown Act and the 72 hours, the public needs time to prepare a public comment. For example, when the league prepares public comment, it's a very time-intensive process because we analyze all the materials and collaborate with our coalition partners to create a statement that offers solutions along with explanations behind them. And finally, I want to comment on how difficult it is to find notices related to this commission, including the agenda on the lacounty.gov website. I couldn't go on there and find the link myself when I was looking to see how the public may interact with this. And then when I went to the LA County Board of Supervisors website, I saw that the Redistricting Commission was highlighted as a link that takes you to committees and commissions, and you still have to dig through that list to really find the Redistricting Commission's agendas. It's really quite obscure. And I was wondering if there was a way to make that more of a direct link. Thank you.
We have no more public comment.
Thank you so much for your comments. And I believe we have addressed the issue of a website for us, right there.
So Commissioner Williams, I was just going to give a quick staff update. I know that my alarm is going off for the 2 minutes. We are hoping that the website will be launched for the next meeting going forward, and that will make it much simpler for the public to find all the information about the commission. So coming attractions, stay tuned.
Okay, thank you so much. And we'll take all these comments into consideration.
I believe Commissioner Maeda and Commissioner Vento have their hands up.
Okay.
Commissioner Maeda.
Thank you. I just want to say that I reviewed very carefully the January 26, 2021 letter that came in from the several groups. It's excellent. There's virtually every one of these suggested edits, I think we can agree are valuable and should be implemented, with the exception of 3 that I realize are very important to the signers, but they're things I think we need to have further discussion. So section 408 on the communications, I think we are going to be discussing that further. Section 601 of the Brown Act, the request to have additional time beyond the minimum amount of time, 72 hours. I understand that desire to have more time. I realize 72 hours in advance is not enough time, but I would hesitate to lock us into requiring us to have 7 or 14, even 7 days, let alone 14 days advance. We have so much work. We're not going to be able, I don't think necessarily in every case, to provide that kind of notice. So I would rather have something in there saying something like the commission shall endeavor to provide more than the minimum amount of time whenever possible or whenever practicable or something along those lines, rather than locking this in. And then finally, very interested in the discussion about section 607, about the committees, about the working groups, whether or not people can do work without having a public process. It just strikes me that, having a public process public comment and all that is sort of defeats the, one of the purposes of having the working group, compile stuff and then bring it in a public setting to the full commission to review. I think that's is sort of my preference if that's possible to be done.
Okay.
Commissioner Vento, then Commissioner Saida Soto.
Yeah, I was wondering if we as a committee wanted to kind of maybe set an end time for this meeting. I mean, and the reason this brings up, I know we did this last time where I think we said like 9:30. I don't know how you feel about that. I know we do have a lot to do, but I don't think I can make it till 10 tonight. I'm just letting you know that. I'm juggling 3 kids and I have a household. So I'm just wanted to just kind of, maybe if we could kind of decide when we want to call an end to this meeting, just to see how everybody feels. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings, I'm just being realistic in my situation. So.
Okay, appreciate that.
Commissioner Saida Soto.
Yeah, thank you. First, thank you, Holly, for taking some of what was in the coalition letter and bringing it into the draft of the bylaws. I also agree with Commissioner Maeda that they were extremely thoughtful. I appreciated one that I saw a spirit of wanting to make sure that the language that is in the bylaws reflects the diversity of the county. And I think with regards to section 6.01 of the Brown Act, I think when I initially read it, I thought we're currently meeting every week, so extending it to 7 to 14 days really would be a challenge, given that we'd have to end a meeting and immediately send out materials, which would be really quite impossible. Having said that, I think we've done a good job so far of providing more than 72 hours notice. And my hope is that as the website rolls out and the material is easier to find, that it makes it less challenging. It will never be not challenging for community to have enough time, but hopefully less challenging. And I think it is a section I'd like to have much further discussion around, because it is, I think, what will set the tone for how much engagement we will have from community, and not just from community, but which communities will be able to engage if not given the appropriate amount of time to do so. So, thank you.
Anyone else?
If I may, is there any particular initial direction or thoughts on the communication piece of the bylaws?
Commissioner Holtzman.
Okay. So now we're getting to specific parts of the bylaws. I would like to display my draft of alternate bylaws when we talk about each piece. But let me just preface this by letting you all know that I'm seriously trying to help all of us, the commissioners, with this. Please realize that bylaws are rules that we're imposing on ourselves. So one of my main purposes, if not my main purpose, in drafting an alternate set of bylaws, and I'm quite experienced with bylaws, is to minimize the number of rules that we're imposing on ourselves and take out things that are unnecessary, and ensure that there are no traps that we accidentally set for ourselves in the bylaws. So with that, let me move to, if it's okay for me to share my screen, or I can have Ty do it. I sent him a draft earlier. Maybe it's easier if I share my screen, and I'll show you what I have currently for communications. And I will update my draft and send it in the next couple of days to reflect what we decided about elections for the chair and co-chair in the future. So here we go. Let's see. I have to, there it is. Here we go. I will share. I've done this I shared it this way. So first of all, so that this can be entered in the record or so that people can have it for their records. I'm going to leave this page on for just like 5 seconds, and you can take a screenshot, and then you'll have my draft, the first half of my draft, and then I'm going to just switch to the other half for 5 seconds, so you can take a screenshot of that, and then you'll have the whole communication sections in my draft right now to start. So please take the screenshot of this one, of the first part of this, and then I'll come back to the first part of this. And now here's the remainder of my communication section. So please take the opportunity to take a screenshot now. Okay, so there you go. So my communications, I reorganized it a little bit. Section talks about the county provided email addresses we get. You can see that I don't think it's much different than Holly's version. It requires that, it doesn't require that we use our commission email address, which I don't know if you've tried to use it. It's a real hassle for all of our email. But it does require that all email we do related to commission business gets sent over to our email account because our email accounts will serve, as it says here, a repository of communications related to commission business. And that we may need that in response to, say, Public Records Act requests. So that's part A. I think it's pretty straightforward. We'll have to change part B, where I say the chairperson is the sole spokesperson for the commission. And I don't think this is much different than from what Holly had. It does allow a chair to delegate responsibility in writing for being a spokesperson to a different person, or it also allows the commission by a vote of 9 commissioners to do the same thing if we want an additional spokesperson. So, but otherwise, it's simple, and I think this is pretty much the same as was there before. Now, so I've put the ex parte communication section here. As I explained before, ex parte means you're just talking with one side of a conflict, or so, you know, one side of an issue, somebody who has a particular point of view about an issue that you may have to decide, and you really shouldn't be doing that. So I start with the prohibition on intentionally communicating, not knowingly communicating, but intentionally communicating with a member of the board. And the board in this case is the Board of Supervisors. So we really shouldn't be talking with them at all. So it's most strict with regards to this sort of communication with a member of the Board of Supervisors or staffer, an agent, or even a Board of Supervisors member, immediate family members. So, and then at the end there, I say a commissioner shall promptly make report on any such communication that arises unintentionally, just in case some communication happens, you don't realize you're speaking with a staffer, for a supervisor, or a family member, something like that, as provided herein. So we'll get down to a lower section, which shows how I think we should handle those reports. And the next part is general communication with members of the public, organizations, or interest groups regarding potential district lines. We shall not intentionally communicate with a member of the public, organization, or interest group regarding potential district lines. And then the last sentence there is the same thing. If anything happens unintentionally, we'll report to the clerk of the commission. My bylaws have a role for the clerk of the commission. Originally, I was going to have the vice chair serve that role until we appointed someone else, but I do think at some point we should appoint a clerk who will be in charge of receiving reports like this and other public comments and things like that. The San Diego Commission has a clerk of the commission, kind of where I got this idea. So the third part here is if you do have a conversation with anyone regarding a matter that might related to redistricting in general, and that matter might come before the commission, we'll have an obligation to forward the written stuff, for the electronic stuff, to the clerk of the commission within one full business day. And then we'll have the clerk have the obligation to distribute copies of all that to all the commissioners and to post a copy as well on a commission approved website, which I imagine we'll have within a month or two, within one full business day of receipt. And if you have a conversation that's not recorded, you still have to prepare a written summary of the communication and transmit that within the same way to the clerk, who will similarly distribute and post the summary. I should say that I've already reported an ex parte contact to our staff at consultants. Somebody called and suggested to me that this type of community shouldn't be split across district lines. So whenever we get a public log of that, of such communications, I expect that my report that I made promptly will be included on that log. And so finally, here for the ex parte communications part, it talks about requiring a log of all substantive communications, and that it should include these things: the name of the person, organization communicated with, the date, general description of how to find the summary or the document or whatever on the commission approved website. So that's that. And then I think I have something similar to what Holly has about keeping in mind our bylaws and us being encouraged to use caution when using the internet, social media, and even the like button or whatever on social media. So I wanted to just lay that out there so that you can see that and start considering it. I don't think we necessarily need to take formal action on the communication section tonight, but I would like you to consider and compare and contrast when during the week when we get some more time to think about it. So thank you for your indulgence. Now I guess you have screenshots so you can go back and refer to this, but like I say, I'll send out to the chairs and staff an updated version of my whole set of bylaws, which I think are more compact and a little bit more friendly to us commissioners. So thank you.
Commissioner Vento, then Commissioner Wong and Commissioner Stetcher.
Yeah. Now, Commissioner Holtzman, thank you so much for the time and effort that you put yourself in this. And I do like what you have proposed. And I just wanted to make sure that when you said you sent it to the staff and everything like that, we could eventually see this in writing as well, correct?
I think they'll distribute it to you once I send it to them.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Commissioner Wong, then Commissioner Stetcher, and Co-Chair Maeda.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Holtzman. Clearly, you put a lot of work into this, and I do appreciate your attention to detail, being an attorney. But I guess my first initial reaction is that it's a little repetitive in my mind, and especially the ex parte communication bit, because I think when you have a communication from anybody, member of the public, an organization or an interest group, that kind of covers, any communication you have in that section. So I guess I'm thinking it's making it a little more complicated and confusing, at least to me, but I will read through it again and compare it. I did read it though and compared it with Holly's version. I do like that you advise that we do things, we report things promptly. And this is another issue when we go through even Holly's version. I think rather than doing it within 24 hours of one business day, I think we should just have a requirement to do things promptly instead of have a specific deadline of a time. But otherwise, I think it pretty much tracks Holly's. And so, I think whether it's some of the detail that you have or Holly's, the main part, I think I would wonder or question is whether or not we need that section on the ex parte communication. Because, and I don't know if you mean that you want to ban all that type of communication, because I do think we need a larger discussion about that.
I think you'll find differences between 3 different types of communications there, and we can take the header off if you don't like the words ex parte communication.
Commissioner Stetcher?
Yes, thank you. I too want to applaud Commissioner Holtzman's attention to detail and comparative analyses. I have a couple of points I wanted to make. One is I'm struggling quite a bit to reconcile these 2 versions, and I'm finding the only way I can do it is to print them out and lay them down side by side and compare. And I'm not sure I'm making a precise request here, but it would be very helpful if perhaps Commissioner Holtzman or perhaps Holly could identify the places where they differ, not specifically word by word, but differ substantively, and help us raise the discussion up a little bit to what the actual practical differences are between the various forms. It's hard to compare them. They aren't numbered the same. They don't have the same number of paragraphs and the like. But I find what I have to do, I will print this out and print out the other one and read them comparatively.
I'll do something like that, sure.
Okay. Great. The second point I wanted to make was just a small one about using the virtual desktop and the BOS website. Ty told me, and perhaps everyone else already knows this, but you can download a version of Outlook and to your phone and point it to the website and get your email very efficiently without having to log in to the virtual desktop and open Outlook on the desktop. And it makes it much easier to get communications and stay attached to the back and forth that we're going to be having that way. Thank you.
Co-Chair Maeda, then Commissioner Franklin.
Similar comments to Commissioner Wong and Stetcher. I had to print out Commissioner Holtzman's version, do side by side. I found very, very little difference in most cases. And I'm just I understand words are important, but substantively, I'd like us to focus on the things that really make a difference rather than wordsmithing every sentence and phrase. I just as soon start with Holly's version, but if you could point us to important points that are really different, then let's focus on that and take care of them. I have to admit, it sounds like you have a different version than what I printed out today. That also makes it difficult when we're trying to get this thing done. We've got a lot of work to do. Let's get this thing done.
Yeah, like I said, I updated it today, and I will prepare something, like I said, on the differences.
Commissioner Franklin?
Yes, that was part of my comment that Co-Chair Maeda just mentioned. Holly Galen, I'm sorry, actually sent us Commissioner Holtzman's draft bylaws along with Holly. So with Commissioner Holtzman's recent, it's not the recent draft, because he shared a draft online that's not the same as the draft that was submitted to the commissioners attached to the agenda. So it makes it kind of confusing. So it's, it really makes it confusing, and it needs to be simplified in a sense, but it is here, and I did read it and tried to make some comparisons between Holly's draft and Commissioner Holtzman's draft. But then when he put the revised version, updated version on the screen
Hmm.
a few minutes ago, it's a little different. So it makes it really cumbersome. But I appreciate Commissioner Holtzman's attention to detail.
I wonder if I may, with the chair's indulgence, it seems like there seems to be broad consensus. I have not heard any comments that there should not be any requirements of posting or reporting public comments. It may just be in the details about the process or the timing, but I haven't heard anybody say we should not have this or something like this. And I think that is actually very helpful for us moving forward, as no one is saying, no, we don't want anything like this. So in terms of us trying to come back to you with a different draft and highlight any differences, I understand. I mean, I know that Commissioner Holtzman said he has a competing draft. I actually don't feel like I'm in competition with Commissioner Holtzman on this. We're both trying to get a good set of bylaws for the commission. So,
Commissioner Mendoza, you have your hand up.
I did. Thank you. Holly, I'm not suggesting to you or anybody that we should not have something in this communication section. I want to make sure I understand it. One of the first things you said, that it was not a requirement. So the purpose, I'm gathering, and maybe I'm completely wrong, is to ensure that the process is not tainted, it's not hijacked, that the commissioners are able to, conduct themselves in an appropriate manner, whatever appropriate is. But I guess the one thing that I'm struggling with a little bit, it seems very limiting in the sense that we can only speak through now, not just the chair, but the two chair, the co-chairs. And it seems a little stifling. We're not on jury duty. And I don't know, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the read of it now, and I want to see the final read of whatever we agree to. But certainly I agree with what most everybody has said thus far, which is that Commissioner Holtzman's well thought out and comprehensive, I won't call it substitute anymore, but a version of the bylaws very similar to what you put together, Holly. But I did notice after last couple of meetings that the communication section has changed. So I'm wondering if there's information's been pulled from Commissioner Holtzman's bylaws and put in this. So again, it's just, I don't know. I think that I'm very confident that each and every one of us are going to be able to maintain our objectivity to carry out our charge and making sure that everything is done in a very prudent manner. Thank you.
Co-Chair Maeda.
So one of the things I noticed was a reference occasionally to communications, a ban on communications or distinction of communications, where the words except for administrative matters or except for matters pertaining to the time of an agenda of meetings and so forth. That concept versus other kinds of discussion about communications about line drawing. In the case of the letter, the January 26th letter that we received, public comment. And then in the older version, I guess, of Commissioner Holtzman's ex parte communication, it was regarding existing or potential district lines. So it's not clear in my mind if we're talking about any kind of communications, when does it become, something that relates to commission business versus when the next meeting is? Or is there in fact a distinction between, we could talk about a lot of different things, but one thing we can't talk about is where the lines are. Is that the only, sort of red line, if you will, that we need to worry about? Or do we need to report all kinds of communications, including, hey, did you know that there's a redistricting commission happening? There's opportunities to participate. I'm on it and so forth. Is that okay? Or is that all stuff that has to be reported as well?
Commissioner Haida Soto, then Commissioner Wong, and Commissioner Holtzman.
I also had a little bit of concerns with the communication as part of my day job. One of my day job duties is being a social media manager. So I constantly will publish information from the Board of Supervisors or one of the board when they have food drives. But so I'm assuming they'll be sharing information as this process moves along. So, you know, what I do on my own personal social media accounts, that's easy to control. But you know, I'm reaching out to a jurisdiction, to the constituents in my jurisdiction for through work matters. So, you know, that might just complicate maybe some. I know I'll probably just be posting. I'm envisioning when these public meetings are going to be published, like in each of the supervisory districts. In particular, I work in the first district, so I'll probably be focusing on that for my jurisdiction. So I think it's maybe there could be some clarification. I just don't want to be caught, you know, having to publish communication for each of the social media posts I do on behalf of my work duties. So maybe just for clarification, just to, and I don't know if anyone else has those roles, but I'm thinking I just don't want to be caught, you know, not communicating. I'm definitely for doing public outreach as much as possible, but if it's going to conflict me out, then there might be some concerns. That's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Wong, then Commissioner Holtzman, and Commissioner Stetcher.
Thank you. Yes, you know, just trying to read through this again. I think that the general requirement to disclose any substantive discussions about redistricting matters is pretty broad. And I guess that was why when I was looking at Commissioner Holtzman's recommendation about ex parte communications, that is more specific. I realized after Commissioner Maeda pointed this out that it's more specific about district lines. I think that though the requirement to disclose, I would consider that substantive. So that requirement to disclose that I would think is subsumed into the paragraph around around reporting anything that's substantive discussion about redistricting. That's even more general and broad. So I guess that was what was confusing to me, which seemed to be a main difference in that section. And I didn't see it necessary, but you know, so I hope others look and read through that and see if that's how they interpret it.
Commissioner Holtzman.
Okay, it's a good time for me to address that sort of confusion in Commissioner Maeda's question. The paragraph 1 of the ex parte communication section and paragraph 2 both talk about communications regarding line drawing, basically, where lines should be. And those two paragraphs prohibit, ban, say, no, you can't do this at all. Whereas the third paragraph, paragraph 3, is a catch-all, which says if you're communicating about anything that you think might become before the commission, any like your philosophy of redistricting, somebody asks you if you think independence good or whatever, or if you know what you think of the law that you're working under, or you know, what do you think the goals of you know, what software you think is better for mapping? I don't know, whatever, something like that might come before the commission. That's a catch-all where you can still talk about those things. You should, you know, obviously be discreet. If something's already pending before the commission, you really shouldn't talk about it. But if something, and that's in the Brown Act, but you know, something like about redistricting comes up with somebody and you're allowed to talk about it, you should disclose it. So the first two paragraphs are prohibition, and the third paragraph is a requirement for disclosure. And the first two paragraphs, when I can see why it's confusing, include a line saying, well, look, if you unintentionally have this communication, you should disclose it, but you shouldn't ever intentionally have it.
Commissioner Stetcher, then Commissioner Saida Soto.
I think a couple of examples would be helpful here. And I know it's not typical for bylaws, and maybe we don't want to include them in the text, but have them be in an annex or something. But it might help us if there were some examples of this. It's okay to do or say this or this or this. It's not okay in this other situation when you're meeting with a Rotary group to mention how you're struggling with the distinction between Belmont Shores and Long Beach. You know, some 2 or 3 meaty examples might help us to see the distinctions that are being drawn.
Commissioner Saida Soto.
I'm looking at the letter that was submitted by the coalition, and specifically section 4.08 regarding communications, and I definitely see a big difference in the language there that is being proposed by community members around banning, right, communication with general public, board of supervisors, their staff, their families, so on. And then looking at what we're currently, one of the versions we're currently considering is kind of flexible, but says if you do, you should report it. So I think given that, given the community input and also, you know, that it is government code, I wonder if it really does require that much discussion if it is government code, that be the language that we are banned from doing so. Like, it's really not that flexible, it seems to me.
Chair Williams, I might point out that we are at 9:43 if you want to think about the time frame for the meeting.
Yes, I'd like to see if we can move from here. Holly, do you have enough to move on?
Yes, I think we've got enough direction to present, you know, a revised set, and it can work with Commissioner Holtzman on presenting it in an easy to compare format some way. And we've got enough. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate all of the input from the commissioners, and I agree with the letters that was sent to us, was very helpful. I want to make sure we do talk about the task force, commissioner task force, and petition formation of ad hoc working groups. So Gayla, can I turn that over to you?
Yes, and I will share my screen again. Well, let me walk through the concept as well.
Okay.
I function as your executive director. Up until this point, until we've had the co-chair selected, I've been the one who has prepared the reports, made some executive decisions in collaboration with Holly and with input from the county. I would like to have small ad hoc working groups that could provide some counsel to me, some guidance on a number of topics before we bring it to the full commission. I believe that what I then would bring to you would have gotten a lot of the issues maybe resolved on a smaller group basis and could help shorten the meetings. And we could have more time for public comment on them before you proceed. So in no way is this bypassing in any way the full sharing of the information, but it's really to make sure that we give you the best staff reports so you can have it considered going forward. So let me pull up the actual document that I shared with you all. And so one area that I think there's a lot of interest with the commission has to do with public access and outreach. And I've been drafting, for example, a public access outreach plan in collaboration with Carlos de Alba, whom you'll be meeting in February when we share that. I thought it would be helpful, not only should we have 2 co-chairs, but we might also want to have a commission lead who might be a person that I interface with on some of these ideas and options. We have people with all sorts of expertise in terms of outreach. There may be 2 or 3 other commissioners. This would involve providing input in terms of not only the plan, but how we can help leverage the various community organization networks, many of whom have spoken to you, submitted letters, the scheduling of various organizational presentations or workshops, any surveys we may want to do, the public hearings, setting those dates and formats for proposal to you all, as well as the 2 public hearings. Another area that will be a very robust area is the redistricting mapping tools and demography. And I know many of you are very interested in this area as well. The first charge would be to look at candidates of demographers we've identified so far, and to think through how we best want to present either the full slate of demographers for selection of one, or maybe narrowing the list down. But also providing information in terms of what is happening with LA County and the GIS team in terms of the software, the census data, and then as we get into development of the final options that you would propose in the fall. A third area would be subject matter experts. And this is really identifying some of the people whom you would like to have come present to you on the issue of redistricting. I have begun to develop a list of subject matter experts, but I'd really like confirmation from groups that, yes, this is worth the time of all 14 commissioners. I added also a suggestion of a group, I'm sorry, went down too far, to think about values. This would be a very short-term one, but it would come together to really think about what are the 3 or 4 values we really want to share in terms of the public. I had talked about some of these in December as sort of a placeholder with the first 8 commissioners that have to do with transparency, public engagement will be important, integrity, etc. Don't know if there's an interest, but maybe you want a group that might review any draft reports that we as staff prepare, or any press releases. And then you'll see below that are other things involving training, and then the administrative support. And I put chair and vice chair, but this would be really the co-chairs in terms of the agenda, the minutes, and supporting materials. So with that, I will open it up. I think we need to first take public comment, Chair Williams, followed by discussion. And again, it can be just a work in progress, but I felt this would be a good way to engage a lot of the commissioners, especially since we'll be meeting every other week starting in February, or sorry, the 2nd and the 4th Wednesday of every month starting in February.
Okay. Is this something where I guess we would self-nominate for these committees, and it's for these ad hoc working groups? And I when I looked at it, I thought it was very thorough. I liked where we were headed, and I was really happy to see the values since I wasn't a part of that first working group. So I guess any comments on this, or?
So there are no public comments on this, but Commissioner Maeda has his hand up.
Okay.
Commissioner Maeda?
Actually, it was with regard to the prior discussion, but since I have the floor, I certainly strongly support having these working groups, and I'm hoping that people will, will volunteer to participate in many of them.
Let me also just,
sorry.
If I may, let me just offer another suggestion in the interest of time. What I could do, like I have done in the past, is send out a survey to see who might be interested in what group, or do a quick, to get that input. And then I would suggest that none of you are on more than one group, because each of these groups require time. The one exception might be values, because it's very short term.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Wong, then Commissioner Holtzman.
Oh, thank you. Yes, actually, I was going to ask about a process, so thank you, Gayla, for proposing that process. I don't know if we need a motion for that. I mean, I hope not, but if we do, I would be happy to make a motion to try to give suggestions to the co-chairs, perhaps, and you, Gayla. Anyway, if we would want to volunteer for the different groups, I'd be happy. That's a good suggestion.
You do not need a motion for that. We can just take this as direction.
Great.
Commissioner Holtzman.
I just wanted to point out that my draft of the bylaws says that the commission can adopt whatever committees it wants, but those committees should be 5 or fewer people, partly so they work better, and mainly so they work better, also so we don't run up against Brown Act considerations.
Also,
So,
Commissioner Holtzman, these would be ad hoc working groups, so they would be a lot less formal than a standing committee per se.
Oh, I think I also said ad hoc committees. So I said ad hoc subcommittees. So they're not even standing committees. So that's pretty much the same thing as ad hoc working groups, whatever you want to call them. So there you have it. By the way, you mentioned it'd be good to have these groups, but I'd be happy meeting every week until we get things more settled. I'm just saying.
Other comments? Okay. So you will be circulating this to us, Gayla?
Yeah, I would be happy to circulate a survey to find out who's interested in what.
Okay.
I would also like to make a request, since I'm going to be submitting the public access plan, and I know a number of folks here really have some rich thought. Before it's even formalized, I was wondering if there could be 2 or 3 commissioners that I might reach out to who have very strong backgrounds in communications and networking, grassroots organizations. And I can name some that I would like to propose, if I may, and then any others we can see. But I believe Saeda, Commissioner Saeda Soto, Commissioner Haile Soto, Commissioner Opinela Segura, and Commissioner Morales would be very valuable if they'd be willing to review our draft before we bring it to the full commission.
Yes, thank you, Gayla.
Commissioner Morales, you have your hand up?
I'm volunteering, folks.
Yeah, I like to be voluntold sometimes. I just wanted to say, yes, I'm very much interested in networking outreach.
Commissioner Opinel Segura?
Yes, I would be happy to do so.
Have we covered all 4? I have all 4 volunteers. Are there anyone who feels left out, that feels bad, or are we all set on that one? So what I would suggest is we informally get together. This can be an experiment on how this ad hoc working group works. We'll come next meeting. I would like to introduce you to Carlos de Alba on the public access plan, and we'll be presenting a draft based on their input as well, these commissioners' input as well. So thank you.
Okay, great.
And then we can look at the other ad hoc groups going forward.
And you have the survey, you'll have that information for us too at the next meeting. Like
yeah, I'll send out the survey about all the groups. You can suggest some other groups. We can decide if this working group on public access outreach wants to continue as formed or if they want to be reconstituted, but at least as an interim measure, I'd love to get your input on the front end.
Okay, great.
So thank you.
Commissioner Stetcher, you have your hand up.
Yes, this is an unrelated topic. I wanted to remind or inform people that tomorrow morning there is a webinar put on by Common Cause, I think, on redistricting. And those of you who have available time might want to drop in. I'm going to drop in. I'm not sure any of the details about what they'll be presenting, but it was one of the first opportunities we had to get some outside input.
And I spoke to them. I can't attend, but if you're not able to attend, they're able to get the information to you and a video. So I think they've been communicating with Gayla on that, and so we'll be able to have access to it if you can't attend as well. So once they'll get that to Gayla, you can let her know if you're interested. I'm interested. I just didn't have time tomorrow. Are we? I think we're at the end of our agenda.
Chair Williams,
we have
one more hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
We have 2 more hands. Co-Chair Maeda and then Commissioner Holtzman.
I know in the interest of time, I just want to raise this question. I'm curious about what the difference is. This is later in the bylaws, but if we can tee it up for some other meeting, what the difference is between the Roberts Rules of Order versus Rosenberg Rules of Order. I know, Holly, you prefer the latter. I've never heard of it, but I'm just curious because they seem pretty similar to me. But
I'll cover it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Holtzman.
Yeah, on that, I came across an article, a short PDF on why Roberts is better than Rosenberg's. I'll send that to Holly for distribution too. Anyway, Chair Williams, we still have item 7 to do, and I have some things I'd like to mention as possible topics for future agendas.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that. Okay, item 7.
Just to provide some guidance, Chair Williams, these are items for consideration on future agenda items.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. I'm looking at my agenda on my phone. All right, future agenda items.
Be happy to start.
Okay.
First of all, I'm wondering if we'd like to have a report on what's going on with the San Diego Independent Redistricting Commission. I think they have a meeting tomorrow evening. I'm going to try and watch it. If the commission would like, I can try and give a report on that. I noticed that on the agenda for tomorrow, they have a lot on budgeting and contracting and expenditures and things like that. So that brings up another thing I'd like to put on a future agenda is, our budgets, expenses so far, contracts, and how we'll handle hiring consultants in, going forward. So that's another thing. As Fatima Malik, the president of the LA County League, pointed out, right now, it's really hard for us, for members of the public, to find our agendas, minutes, etc. The county system is pretty poor. So I actually looked, and it looks like it violates the Brown Act in a couple of ways. I don't want to go into that in detail now, but I was thinking maybe we could put the possibility of requesting a better county system for posting agendas and minutes. Because even if we do our own website, they'll still have to link to our website somehow. And I think they should do that in compliance with the Brown Act and better than they're doing now. It's a real hassle. So I would also like to agendize whether we should be, whether to require our approval, the commission's approval, for things like website design, press releases going forward. I guess those would have to be approved by the chairs. And, any outreach that's being done in our name. And finally, I might want us to consider asking the state legislature, to reschedule the 2022 primary election from June to September. A lot of places have September primaries, and I calculated. You may remember last time I was asking about where the deadlines came from. So I went and I found where the deadlines came from, and I found that if the primary is rescheduled to September and the county goes along, which of course it would almost certainly do, that would give us another couple of months to work. We would have until February or something. So if you'd like, I'm pretty good at writing letters to legislators asking them to carry bills or amend certain code to make that easier. Because I do think we may have some difficulties getting data from the census in a timely manner, given the mess that has been left for the new administration. So those are my items.
Any others? Okay.
Commissioner Morales has your hand up.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And I'm not trying to extend the time frame here, but we are going to be adjourning very soon. And I just wanted to propose that we adjourn this meeting in memory of Antonio Bernabe, who was an organizer who just passed away of COVID-19, but not just Tony, who was an amazing individual, day laborer, lived his life fighting for immigrant rights. But the many folks that have died during COVID-19 and this last, turn of events. A lot of our family members, a lot of folks in our community have passed away. A lot of folks that won't see the opportunity to maybe adjust their status in the near future. A lot of folks whose voices still count and still matter. And so I just wanted to propose that we do that tonight.
Appreciate that.
And also to recognize that Commissioner Haley Soto's father passed away, and we're very sorry about that.
Yeah.
We're glad you're back.
Yeah. Send our condolences. We have not done the executive director's report.
In the interest of time, I will hold for next meeting. I do want to share with you that the latest information from the U.S. Census Bureau is that their data that you will need to do the remapping may not be available as early as July 1, but they're now saying July 31st. So we can talk about that going forward in terms of our timeline. And it does tie in with what Commissioner Holtzman said, that at the county level and various other counties and jurisdictions throughout the state are going to be looking at the crunch now to get redistricting done.
Okay, and I know we're at the end, maybe for future agenda items, if I may, consider looking at our time frame for our meetings. And, you know, in consideration of the commissioners, is that something we'd like to consider? So I'd like to add that as a future agenda item. Will we meet 2.5 hours, 3 hours? You know, consider that. Any other items? Okay, can we have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. I'm sorry, who seconded?
Thank you, everybody. What an amazing meeting again. And we're meeting again in 2 weeks. So now we're back on our schedule for the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of each month. Okay, a lot to do in between. So take care. We'll see you.
Thank you.
And
Good night.
great
Have a good night, everyone.
Be well.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Right.
Commissioner May